Salted Legacy by Serena Marie is the first adventure in Journeys through the Radiant Citadel, and it's for first-level characters. In it, characters travel to Subsun Cove for the Night Market Festival. The characters enjoy a variety of food and shopping at the festival, but it's not all fun and games. The characters have a mystery to solve, and it just so happens that solving it requires more fun and more games. Someone is causing trouble at the market, and the characters must find the culprit. Unfortunately, physical clues are scant, so they'll need to talk to market vendors. None of the vendors are fond of talking to nobodies, so the PCs must participate in the market games to gain renown. With renown, players are able to get the clues they need to solve the mystery and going back to enjoying delicious food. I am a big fan of low-level, low-stake adventures, and with the inciting incident being Who Stole the Onion, Salted Legacies really scratches my low-stakes itch. The game flow alternates between events and market exploration time. This does put the game a little on rails, but the nice part about events is the dungeon masters can choose when to implement them. So if roleplay during the exploration phase is going well, then the event can be delayed. If the game is stagnating a bit, then the event can be thrown in. In this review, I will go through the whole adventure and then conclude with final thoughts. Characters begin by exploring the festival, sampling local delicacies, and seeing how many different ways you can describe food being tasty. Once you're running low on adjectives, the game starts properly when the characters witness a shouting match regarding stolen onions. The two parties are the Zangoon and Tianamo families who've been feuding for years. It can be a tricky roleplay moment as players watch you arguing with yourself. And the onions aren't the only strange occurrence. The night market has been encountering quite a lot of mischief this year. The Zangoon and Tinamo's long-standing rivalry leads them to blame one another, and they're willing to pay the party as objective outsiders to find the cause of this disruption. Once the party accepts, they meet Kasem Arun, who is in the red here. He is one of the two Spicy brothers. Kasem offers to give them a tour of the night market, during which he encouraged them not to get in the middle of the feud. This can be a massive clue, so play it low-key if you don't want things being solved too early. When the party does switch into investigation mode, they will find no one is willing to tell them much. It's a bit difficult to get across in roleplay, but NPCs give the player characters better clues the more renown they had. I had an NPC listening into the first conversations where the party were rebuffed. My new NPCs didn't have any clues for the mystery, but did let the party know that people around here are a bit wary of strangers, and they might have better luck getting answers if they make a name for themselves first. I really like social puzzles like this that require solutions beyond just good charisma rolls. It is a bit strange that every vendor is willing to speak more to market game winners than outsiders, especially as the game begins with the party being hired because they were outsiders. But chances are your party will be falling over to themselves to participate in the market games just as soon as they hear there are market games, so it'll work out. There are 3 market games, and winning each one grants a character 1 renown for a maximum of 3. Depending on how your game goes, you might wish to grant or take away renown from players if they do something great or terrible. I had one player get negative renown after killing a beloved pet of one of the vendors. With 3 renown, all the clues the players are given are basically telling them who the culprit is, but this mystery should be solvable with 2 or even 1 in some cases. So what are the market games? There are 3 available market games. They kind of vary from year to year, and you can run them in any order. I'll just go through them one by one in the order of the book, with the first being the Arun Family Pepper Challenge. This is a challenge in which player characters, as well as other NPCs, must eat spicy peppers without succumbing to the heat. This is done in the form of constitution checks. So during the challenge, Arun demonstrates his charismatic self, keeping the crowd laughing, keep the crowd cheering, as the participants grab random peppers from a basket and must eat them without reaching for milk or leaving the table. To represent that random spicy pepper, we're given a table here. The lower numbers have lower DCs, with the higher numbers being more difficult to represent spicy peppers. So on their turn, players roll a d10 to grab a random pepper and make a constitution saving throw based on how spicy it is. If they meet it or beat it, they're fine. They can move on to the next challenge. If they fail the challenge by 10 or more, they are out. They grab the milk, they leave the table, leave it up to your players to how exactly they lose. There is also failures between 9 and 1. If you fail, but not enough to lose, then the heat's getting to you and you have disadvantage on the next round. To win, you only need to complete 3 rounds of peppers. I think this is very good as it keeps it time locked, and you can have multiple winners. It'd be tedious if the characters had to keep eating peppers, because after you've seen a couple, you've kind of seen what the pepper challenge has to offer. In addition to being spicier, the peppers above the 5 range start having interesting effects. For instance, you must make 2 Constitution saving throws. For an instant, every participant's face looks like a skull to you. A lot of these effects are very mechanical, and I think this is a great opportunity to spice it up with some unusual effects peppers might have. Maybe if you lose to the level 9 pepper, your face is red for the next hour, causing some interesting market interactions. Perhaps if you beat the skull face pepper, you can belch fire once in the next hour. My personal favorite was changing the number 1, which is listed as a actual cherry tomato, as a delayed heat pepper. So in the contest, it's a free round, but later, all of a sudden, your character is hit with a wave of heat and must seek out milk or water or something. That way, it's still effectively the same, and you can have a fun roleplay moment later when they're in another market game or talking to an important NPC and suddenly are overcome with heat. Your characters will have a very high chance of making it through all 3 rounds. I did 1,000 simulations, and even at a +0 con save, there's about a 64% chance of people making it through. A lot of that is because anything lower than a 6, it's impossible to lose out of the contest on. But that's good. You want a lot of people passing this. If the characters need renown to do the story, you don't want to lock renown. So this would be a good way to get some of your characters renown. The second challenge is what's known as the Battle Prawn Challenge. This is run by Sid, one of the proprietors of the night market, and in it the characters will need to prepare his shrimp cakes as fast as possible. This, unlike the Pepper Challenge or the Hide and Seek Challenge, there's only one of this challenge, and the only participants will basically be the player characters. To make this fit with the night market, why they're having outsiders do their one challenge, I make it kind of a reputation Sid has for pranking outsiders who are unfamiliar with the night market and giving them wacky contests so all the regular attendants can laugh. That's why it doesn't give a lot of information about the contest before the players sign up. And, there's a lot of laughter as he winks during his introduction, hinting at the characters not knowing what they're facing. And what they are facing is giant shrimp. These have the giant Seahorse stat block, and will be a big surprise, if not a real threat to your characters, even at level 1. They will be trapped in the tank and pretty ineffective once they get out. Characters will need to chop beans and kill 1 giant seahorse. The tank water is muddied, so you're not able to see into it, so they're just told they need to prepare beans and prepare shrimp. So they might think it's more shrimp size, but the first time they find out, big cheers, big laughter by the crowd, as they have to battle the shrimp and battle the beans and get them both done in under 6 rounds. The beans are simple objects with a base AC of 10 or 12 and not much hit points. So it's easy to chop up with the knives. The shrimp can be targeted pretty easy from outside, but they're still tough to get over to the woks. This challenge is not too difficult for parties who have experience in D&D, but this is a entry-level adventure, so you don't want to overwhelm newbies by having them run over in their first fight. This is only fine in the adventure. It's fun. Make it silly. Make the crowd laughter. If your players do something goofy, support them. Really get into the flavor. This adventure is not one where death should be an option. And if your players start to lose, you can have the sous chefs. You can have Sid running for help if things get too deadly. This is another challenge that I really liked. The third challenge was the only one I wasn't really a big fan of. I'm going to go through it based on the book and then describe how I would change it. So it begins with Madame Culp, who has some fantastic character art. I think Madame Culp is absolutely fantastic. She sells silk by these created by her pet caterpillars. In it, her tent is raised on stakes with a basement below, accessed by a trapdoor. It is dark except for the first room, and players must seek out caterpillars and find them. To win, they need 4 caterpillars. To do this, they need to 1. Make an investigation perception check in a room, and if they do find a caterpillar there, then they will, on a subsequent turn, need to make a dexterity check or animal handling to get one. This kind of turns into a bit of a repetitive challenge. They do have 10 rounds to do it, so it's move, check, maybe grab. Move, check, maybe grab. With moving being the only thing you can do besides check or grab during a turn, characters don't really get the ability to be themselves. I mean, you can have people casting light to help see so they don't have disadvantage, even with their dark vision, but it's not really that expansive. The other reason it's tough is because characters are supposed to gain renown from this, and here they are going into a darkened basement where no one can see them, and theoretically anyone can do this challenge over and over, so unless Madame Culp is, shouting out, hey, these guys won, it's tough for that renown to get around. In addition, 4 caterpillars is not based on the number of player characters, and there's no real limit to how many can go at once. I would at least change the challenge to be 1 caterpillar per PC, and just have that many available. But my changes are going to be a bit different. Alright, the array I've drawn it out is a bit different. I want to have all the players competing not only against the requirements of Madame Culp, but against each other and against other night market attendees. So the way I have it is everyone crowds in H1, the participants in the party, and several other NPCs, which I don't represent on the map. When it's go time, I just have them go through the room searching, and but are unrepresented. The players are still able to move freely. And the idea is that anyone who returns out of the trapdoor with 2 caterpillars is a winner. So, like the Pepper Challenge, you may have some players winning and some losing. I think this will lead to an interesting dynamic when players who might be better at searching might help each other. Maybe you want to make sure the player who already has several renown wins, so you're making sure to push the caterpillars to them. Maybe you find 2 right away and help your friends. But the idea is that every chamber has caterpillars in it. Because there's other people searching, the ones closer to the door have easier DCs to search, and it's always the same DC to grab. So here I've outlined it's a higher DC near the front and gets lower near the back. In addition, anytime someone finds a caterpillar, I kick the DC up by 5. This only counts to player characters. So if someone finds one in H5, the DC goes up by 5. This makes it so players can't just camp a room searching. They will have benefits to search other rooms as well. So in addition to there being a crowd to see who wins so they can get that renown, this puts more of a contest to it and lets players use additional skills, because with other players in there, maybe they come across a little boy who's sad. He's like, I only find one and the time's running out. Do your players help out the little boy, or do they take his caterpillar with the sneaky rogue so they can win? This will give players a lot of different options to do. There won't be any combat because everyone else there is non-combatants, but there may be some competition against each other there. And maybe if you miss grabbing a caterpillar, it has a chance of running into the hands of an NPC. As the market games roll on, there's been continued mischief in Subsun Co. The night market is being plagued by missing food, persimmons raining from the sky, and even missing cookware. But now that the party has collected enough renown to get proper clues from the vendors, they're able to solve the mystery. I won't go over the clues individually, as they all kind of point one direction and can be interpreted pretty easy. Getting the clues is the difficult part. Once they do have the clues, they're able to spy Kasem is the culprit. Kasem is one of the Spicy brothers, and his brother is getting married. V is the charismatic one, and he will soon be moving to a faraway land, or in my book, one of the other Radiant Citadel's locations. But either way, Kasem does not think he can maintain the Spicy brothers without the charismatic face of V. Distraught, he's sought to cause chaos in the market, and hopefully one of the other vendors will become so distressed that they'll be willing to sell their booth. Now this plan is a bit fishy from my perspective. If he can't manage one booth, how's he going to manage two? Maybe it's the idea is that if he has more than one business, the chances that one of them doesn't fail is higher, in the same way that people have multiple kids. But either way, it doesn't seem likely to cause people to sell either. It's hard to see like Lamai Tianamo saying, well, this booth has been in my family for generations, but missing onions are too much, I'm selling. So it doesn't really seem likely. In my book, I changed his motivation to because his brother was leaving, V was the mediator of the market. He's the one who normally solved the problems. But the market hasn't really had any of late. So Kasem was trying to show him that, no, the market still needs him. You can't leave. Everyone here needs you, not just me. That way it's not as sinister a motivation as to try to kick someone out, so the people in town are more likely to forgive him. I think that flows better with the overall tone of the adventure, where the level of the mischief and the attitude of the people, it makes more sense for a motivation that doesn't involve kicking one of them out completely. So it's a little harmless. His way of doing that, on a recent run out for supplies, he came across these creatures, windlings. And that windling art, I think, is worth the price of the book by itself. They are cute creatures that can turn invisible and are following Kasem's orders in exchange for persimmons, which clever-eyed market goers might see him feeding a persimmon to an invisible creature or an adorable creature like this. So they are causing the mistakes. When confronted, if the party has evidence, Kasem will confess. And when he does so, everyone in the market will be shocked, surprised, confused. The Zangoon and Tianamo families will be surprised it's not each other, but still be grateful and pay the party. Kasem's punishment is kind of left up in the air. It can be determined by the party, I think, as a good way of handling it. Now, granted, the party are strangers, so it won't really be up to the party, but I think it's a fun thing to do. My group had him take the spicy challenge with only the skull-faced peppers. That way everyone can get a good laugh and forgive him, and Kasem could feel like he paid his debt. I thought that was a good solution they came up with. And then the game ends. The party gets the food, they get their gold, and go on their way. I do think it is a great idea to have one of your player characters adopt a windling. They are just too cute not to include more in the adventure. Overall, I really enjoyed Salted Legacy and got positive feedback from my players. A lot of the level 1 games I've seen focus on introducing players to epic comebacks or the start of a major quest. This one takes a different approach and focuses on the roleplay aspect of D&D, which I think is great. We have a lot of new players coming over to D&D after listening to actual play podcasts that focus in on roleplay. So this will be a great introduction for them. By the same token, it will perhaps not be the best introduction for players looking to score a bunch of loot or become epic heroes. There's not a lot of combat, and it's not particularly an epic quest. You're just helping out a market, and presumably it probably would have worked out fine if you had never came. The vendors all have clues pointing to the Kasem. One of them would have put it together eventually. But it is great in the roleplay sense. There are a lot of fun interactions to have, and I recommend really leaning into, the fun lightheartedness of the adventure. Really have people stress out about the onions or other silly small acts. The artwork is also great. I really think all the character art and creature art looks great for the adventure. It is sad that the virtual tabletop maps are so minimal. We get those plain white low-key art ones. It would be great if Wizards of the Coast ever stepped that up for VTT packages. But until that time, it gives people a reason to support their local Patreon artist. It is listed as a level 1 adventure, but you can easily slot this in at other low levels just by changing the shrimp stats, because it is so roleplay focused. In addition, if you are just looking for a festival, you can nix the mystery, put in the festival into your game, and have your game's normal plot run over it, and it's a great setting for that. I think Salted Legacy is a great introduction to the Radiant Citadel, and I'm excited to see where the rest of the game goes.